Yep, that's a picture of me on the M5 heading towards work in November. The Land Rover let me down. Keep watching the video and you can find out why, and why it costs so much money to put it right. Hi, good morning, welcome back to Mike Makes It. You saw the introductory photograph, that's my Land Rover on the M5. I was going to work in the evening. It failed. The engine just cut out and the poor old vehicle just rolled to a halt on the hard shoulder there. RAC came out, couldn't fix it. I got towed home though, and a month later it's back on the road, so it is a bit of a saga going on. The culprit, as you may see here, was the fuel pump. Genuine VDO fuel pump. See if I switch it around that way, you can see it. I fitted a brand new one 7 years ago when I had the Land Rover, because the old one got very, very noisy, and when you got to half a tank it wouldn't pump fuel, which wasn't ideal. But now, 7 years on, this pump has failed. Very low fuel output from it. Basically that's why the engine stalled, got not enough fuel starvation, car decided it's not going to run. So I took the fuel pump out, put a new one in. I don't think this is properly faulty. I'll show you why. Here I believe is a fuel inlet to the tank. This sits in the tank. The fuel pump is just about that much off the bottom of the fuel tank, so the fuel gets sucked in here through a gauze. But when I took this fuel pump out, every one of those holes was blocked. I want to say like with a slime, it's almost like toothpaste, white gunge was in here, and also on 3/4 of this filter, but on the inside you can see the remnants. It's dried up after a month and a half, but yeah, very slimy, mucky looking stuff. People say you can get fuel bug and there's build up of bacteria. I'm not sure about that, but it's had 7 years of good use without cleaning the tank out, so it wasn't the end of the world. Stripping it out, put a new fuel pump in. Sadly the fuel pump's £300, best part of £300 anyhow. You can get cheaper ones. I wouldn't recommend you do. Go for a genuine VDO. This is what Land Rover actually fit to the vehicles, not third-party pump for £40–50. On a TD5, Defender TD590, you got to pull a whole fuel tank out, and that's the saga. With some of the Discoveries, I believe, in the boot area, there's a panel, you can lift that out, take the pump out, lovely. Not so on my Defender 90. But reinstalled the pump, but while I was there, because the tank's out, you got chassis rails that is part of the Defender build. You look for any rust. Unfortunately, you'll see on the pictures coming up in a minute, there's a little bit more than rust, there's holes. So it led to a bit of a, right, what do I do here? It was too far gone as far as I was concerned to actually weld up. I've done a lot of welding on the Land Rover, and the MOT people can't see the rust you can see on the photographs, but that's not the point. It's structural integrity of the vehicle. I want the vehicle right, so rather than just patching that, which I probably could have done, but there was a lot of rust there, I cut the back end off, and you'll see there's a photograph there with everything that got cut off at the back. Basically it's added, I wouldn't, not half a chassis by any means, anything behind the rear wheels got cut off. You can buy parts on eBay, and this chassis assembly I've put on, again there'll be another photograph coming up on what I fitted, was about £250 off eBay, which ain't bad for what it is. There's a few little things I had to do on it. There's a few extra pieces of metal that they added to it which I didn't need on my Defender, that I had to chop off and manipulate, if you like. I'll take you out of the Land Rover and you can have a look at the back and what I've done. There was no hole in this new subframe to put on for the cables to come out of, so I had to make a new hole for that. But largely it went on quite well, but there was a lot of work to be done. It wasn't just cut it off, fit the new one. There's a lot of other remedial work I needed to do at the same time. But the back end's on there now, fuel pump's back in, tank's back in, Land Rover's running. but it probably cost about £750 all in, because I've put new shock absorbers on the back, new springs, the back end, like I said, the bump stops, one was missing totally on the rear end, so there's a new one of those gone in. Didn't actually change the shock absorbers, you'll see in a minute, but that's on the list. I've lost my tow bar on the back. Not all the holes were in the new chassis that I bought, unfortunately, and I got a back step that fitted on into original holes on the back end. They weren't on this chassis, so I'm not going to bother fitting the back step. I've got to come up with a deployable step, I believe, on that. So watch out for the video coming. But we'll go out of the Land Rover, you have a quick look at what I've done, and yeah, we're back on the road, but it took a month. Well, that's the new back end on. It looks a lot prettier than the old one. Take it around the other side. Hopefully you can see in here. The cables I've had to reroute out. They've come out of the old chassis. That's the old chassis there. The new weld is just to the left of the hole, you can see. But the cables have been rerouted and they're all kind of going in quite nice. That's what took the time. The shock absorbers and the spring mount and all that didn't alter that. That's fairly good condition for the age of the vehicle. Just literally the back end. See if we can have a look underneath. Excuse the camera work. Most of the shiny is the new part of the chassis there, obviously up here. I've treated it with sort of a Waxel equivalent, so hopefully it's going to last longer than it would do if I hadn't done that. There's cable loom again. Still got to put the mud flaps back on. These holes don't have captive nuts, so I've got to get the old riv nut tool out and fit a few riv nuts in there, so I can screw on the jolly old mud flaps. Let's close the back door a minute. Also, there was a couple of holes missing here, one on the other side, which had, I can't show you now, it's all buried, but there was a step going on in here, which was quite nice, but you had to almost, when you were climbing in, this is the base of the Land Rover, the step was about here, so you only gained about 4 inches, so a tremendous step, so to speak, but it did look pretty. But what it took so long as well for me to do it, I was on my own doing it, because I put this floor in here. There was some cross members right underneath the chassis that run left to right, only small ones, but strengtheners if you like. One of those had rotted out, so I had to replace that. But to get to captive bolts, etc., would have been simple if I hadn't put this floor in, but I had. So I had to take the floor out. All the cable looms that I had to pull back because I would have melted them when I was welding and repositioned them. That had to come out, that panel there. And there's one on the other side. If it was standard, it wouldn't be quite so bad. But as you can see, there's various bits and bobs being added on. So that was a little bit more traumatic. And if we go back here again, where you saw the cable loom coming out, well, two of those tubes there are new ones for electrical work I've added, and they run up all the way through the chassis rail here and pop out where you can't see, just under here, so I had to pull all those back through as well. So it was a little bit extra work for me. I'll say it was probably about a month the truck was off the road, but it's back on the road now. But yeah, let's go back into the garage, look at the fuel pump and go from there. Right, back on the bench with the fuel pump. Not too much more to show you on here or tell you about, but I will put a full description of the fuel pump operation online. It'll either be a link to my Google Drive or in the description of the video, depending on how many words it is. I'm only like 5,000 characters, I think. So you'll find it there if you take a look. But very briefly, this fuel pump has got two sides to it, a high pressure and a low pressure side, 4 connectors there, 2 are for power, 2 are for the sender unit, which is here. That'll bob up and down depending on how much fuel you have in the tank. There is a coarse filter, as I said at the beginning of the video, which sits on here. To my best knowledge, these pipes, these holes I should say, are where the fuel goes in. I might be mistaken on that. Until I strip it out, I'm not absolutely sure, not 100%, but I can't really see any other inlet. I wouldn't imagine that's it, but you never know. But inside here, apparently, there is a secondary finer filter to, you know, really filter out the debris. This isn't too bad. It take out the coarse particles, put it that way. But if it all goes slimy like this one did on me, this ain't going to help you, because it just blocks those holes solid. But as I said right at the beginning of the video, I may repair this, I may look at it. How I'm going to test it, not terribly sure. I'm certainly not going to strip the Defender down and put it back on that. But I'm going to put it in a bag, put it in the shed for now. If I need it, I'll come back to it. If I got time on my hands, I may come back to it, have a look, strip it out, and if all the filters bunged up in here, clean it out and put a little tick box. Yeah, it's probably good fuel filter, and I may well try it next time round. But it's not a 2-minute job to fit it, but it could save best part of £300. So, you know, we'll play it by ear on that one. Looks easy enough to dismantle. One thing, if you do fit a new filter, fuel pump even, you do need a new seal on it. Don't use the old one. It gets a bit sort of, well, stiff and hard, and it ain't going to keep all the fuel in, all the water out. So definitely replace that. I'll put part numbers online for the fuel pump and this. There's one more thing. Bear with me. I've got something to show you. I'm looking. Here we go. You can use hammer and chisel, but my advice would be get hold of one of these, because this fuel filter, when it's in the tank, there's a big locking ring that goes on and turns, and this tool unlocks it and locks it back up. 1/2-inch drive in the top. I don't recall a price on this. I'd guess in £10 to £15. Worthwhile having. It's a lot more precision tightening and undoing rather than hammer and chisel. So yeah, get yourself one of these if you're going to change your fuel pump. If you paid £300 out for this, £15 is near here or there, so get one of them as well. But that's all I have to say. If you've got any questions, please you know, leave comments and I'll see if I can respond to them. But if you enjoyed the video, thumbs up would be great. And yeah, thanks for watching Mike Makes It.